нагоди 90-х роковин Голодомору, мережа нащадків Голодомору та Світова координаційно-виховно-освітня рада Світового конгресу українців створили проект усних розповідей для учнів 8-12 класів «Ми пам'ятаємо». Сьогодні пропонуємо 6-й епізод із цієї серії. Учениця Ангеліна Shcherbay розмовляла із доктором Наталією Цепинською, родина якої пережила Голодомор.
Angelina Shcherbay, student of the Ukrainian School in honor of Vasyl Stus and the Ridna Shkola of the American Ukrainian Youth Association, Dmytro Vitovskyj Branch. The interview with Holodomor descendant, Dr. Natalie Cepynsky.
What does the Holodomor mean to you?
My father talked about it a long time because he lived through it, and he was 10 at the time, so he talked about it a lot because he didn't want people to forget what happened, the atrocities that Stalin did, and that it was man-made, and it wasn't a famine, but it was a genocide.
Tell me about your relative that survived the Holodomor.
So it was my father Taras Kukhno. He was born August 28, 1923, so I actually turned 100 this year. So he came to America after World War II. He talked about Ukraine a lot. He was very proud of his heritage always. Because his father was a priest, they didn't get any food at all. So he survived, friends giving him food, sharing their lunches in school. So he told stories because I think it's important to remember, because we don't want to forget what happened, because history can repeat itself. And it happens often in other countries, other nations, and we want to remember so that it doesn't happen again.
Did your parents live on a farm?
So my father was the only one that lived through the Holodomor. My mother did not. She was much younger. So they did not live on a farm. They lived in the city, but because their father was a priest, they did not get any food at all. It was taken away from them. They were special like cards that people got to get food and stand in line, but they were not entitled to that.
What did your family do for a living?
My father's father was an Orthodox priest, and he was a priest in Kyiv. One time, the capital of Ukraine moved from Kyiv to Kharkiv because of the war, and he was with the Metropolitan, and he served there, and he had parishes. So he did all the priestly things, funerals, weddings, baptism, church services. So that was the occupation. At that time, the mothers usually didn't work. My grandmother was a panimatka. Her job was to help in the church. There's lots of things that panimatka have to do in church also, with the parishioners, with the parish, helping her husband. And later, when my grandfather was arrested and sent to Siberia, then my grandmother had to get 2 or 3 jobs to try to support the children.
Why was your grandfather arrested?
So when the communists came, they said there was no God, and they arrested all the priests, and they told them, if you say there's no God, then we'll let you go. If there's God, then we have to send you away. So they sent him to Siberia. And at one time, they did get letters from him. They knew he was okay, very bad conditions. But later the letters stopped, and after the fall of communism, they found out that they executed him in 1936.
How did the rest of your family survive while your grandfather was gone?
So my grandmother got extra work. So it was my uncle is the oldest, Valentin, my dad's the middle one, Taras, and my aunt Katya is the youngest. So they went to different relatives' houses while she was working. Grandmothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, they helped at wherever they were living. Holodomor, it was very, very hard. My dad tells me the story that his uncle came one night and he said, we have to do something to survive. And you couldn't buy the food because the money wasn't worth anything. So you could still get food for gold. So like my grandmother sold her wedding ring, her earrings, anything she had. And then later my dad's uncle came, and he had from World War I, he had 3 gold medals, St. George medals. And they were solid gold. and they were given to enlisted men for bravery, and he had 3 of them. If you tried to sell one of these, you would automatically be sent to Siberia. So they cut them all up, and he passed them out to all the relatives, some of these little gold pieces. And that was how they partially survived. My dad said in his grammar school, every day for lunch, one of the kids would share his sandwich with him, and that's how he survived.
What memories did they pass on?
So my dad talked a lot about his memories in Ukraine. He actually wrote a book. He wrote it in Ukrainian, and then I had it translated in English. You know, if you have faith and God is on your side, you can make it through anything. I mean, it's horrific how things were. My dad was even swollen. Like before you die of famine, first you get swollen and then you get very, very thin. He was already to that point, but he survived. Somehow they got food here and there, and he was able to make it. So did his brother and sister and his mother survived, and they all immigrated to the U.S. in the 50s.
Did any of your relatives die during the Holodomor?
So none of my dad's direct relatives died. Some of them did live farther away from the bigger collective farms, and they had some food. Some of them had regular jobs. So they survived, which was really great. There were lots of friends and people in the villages and people that were in the parish that died, but my dad's direct family did not die during the Holodomor.
Where in Ukraine did your father's family live?
My dad was born in a town close to Holodomor, and that is in the Kievsky region. And they lived most of the time in Kyiv, but then later, when he was a little bit older, like in his teens, they moved to Kharkiv.
Why is it important for people to learn about the Holodomor?
Because this was something that happened really bad. It was covered up really bad when it originally happened. It's not like now with television and internet and everybody knows what's happening all over the world. There were people dying of starvation. People heard about it. Even countries sent food all the way up to the border of Ukraine, and they said there's no famine here, there's nothing going on here. It's important to know because one person, one government can do such a thing and kill 10 million people.
Do you believe there is any similarity in the current genocide in Ukraine and the Holodomor?
Yes, but Putin's doing it differently. I mean, if you go back in history, Catherine the Great wanted Ukraine. Peter the Great wanted Ukraine. Stalin, Lenin, they all did. They tried every single way. And the Ukrainian people, they still have their roots, they still have their identity, they have their culture, they have their church. And he's still trying to take over Ukraine. He's still trying to wipe out the people. It's very sad, but at least now the whole world can see that because of, again, social media, YouTube, the press. It's not like it was back in 1933, 32, where nobody knew about it. It was all hush-hush. So it's good that people know, but doesn't make it any better. But then other countries can intervene, other people can help. So history hopefully does not repeat itself.